Everybody's here. Everybody's here, great. Approval of the agenda for this Monday, February 17th meeting with the Zoning and Planning Board of Appeals. Is there action to approve this?
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
And a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from December 16th.
I'll move to approve.
I second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our December 16th meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. All right, on to regular business. So the Zoning and Planning Board of Appeals hears and acts on appeals for variances from city zoning code requirements. The members of this board are appointed. The board acts as a quasi judicial body during these appeals, which means that they're presented somewhat like a case might be presented in court. The board acts as judge and determines whether to grant the appeal by a simple majority vote. For each item, we will hear from the applicant or maybe the petitioner, depending, I think we go back and forth in terms of what we call them, and staff, as well as any additional witnesses where appropriate. So if you are the applicant for an item on tonight's agenda, please come and take a seat up here when we call you, we'll get going. So first up on the agenda is Appeal 25-01. It's a new year, so we start with the new number. Consideration with possible action on a request from Jeremy Doty, applicant and property owner, requesting approval of a driveway width which exceeds standards for 1 or 2 family residential home at 3633 Arcadia Bluff Drive. Now, it's the goal of the Board of Appeals to provide and conduct a hearing that is fair in form, appearance, and substance. And to ensure that this hearing satisfies those goals, would each member of the Board of Appeals please confirm the following for this appeal by stating I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter.
I confirm.
I concur.
Confirm.
I confirm.
And I confirm. I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
And I confirm. Thank you so much. So would Jeremy please join us at the table here? And we'll get started, but we'll hear from staff first.
Sure.
Welcome. So, John, before you begin, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So the one variance in question here is from chapter 44-1746. Driveway shall lead from the public right of way to a garage door opening, plus 24 inches on either side of said door. So the applicant is seeking an approximately 16-foot wide width of their driveway past the garage door, plus 24 feet for the depth of the driveway itself at their property. What you're seeing here is a 2023 aerial photo of the property, looking at a corner lot over on Arcadia Bluff. The driveway is coming here off the eastern property line. So what you see right now is this has been already executed and constructed. This driveway, you can kind of see where the legal line would be, where the expansion gap happens back over this way. There was an additional pour that occurred sometime back in the past few years. So the property was built back in 2021 with an approved site plan that you, I don't think you have here, but with an approved site plan that was in your package that noted a typical driveway of the property. A street view from back in October 2022 shows this expansion was there. It was placed in sometime after there was the initial approvals and construction. The property was sold in October of 2023. A complaint was noted on file as of December of 2023. It's gone through the process now of appeal to where we are at here today. So the applicant is here and is seeking a variance to allow this driveway, which exceeds the standards because it has additional parking in the front yard of a property. With it being a 3-stall garage, there is no attached rule to have the additional 1 stall to the side. So the overall length of the 24 feet and then 16 feet width is what the applicant is looking for. I want to note in your packet, there was some other talk about decking and landscaping, separate issue, not a part of the application. It was part of this overall complaint that was fielded by staff. So it's staff did not see this at any point. There was a complaint that was placed in on the property, and that's when this was noted that there was an expansion that was done past the initial construction.
Questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you said that, that's the front of the house right there?
Corner front.
It's up corner. lot.
Yeah, so corner lot, here's your front.
Uh,
This is your corner front occurring.
okay.
So
Would it be a problem? Well, I suppose maybe. It's not, it would be probably.
if this was on the southern part of the property, we're leaving that way. If this was the same setup, same issue. It's in the front yard and it's the additional parking that does not lead directly to a driveway or to a legal parking stall.
But the person bought the property
Yes,
and it was like,
yes. At least that's been the testimony from we don't have record of that. This complaint came into the department in December of 2023. And that's when action first started happening on this. So we don't know between when there was the actual building plans and construction that occurred in 2021. With the original site plan that showed a driveway leading directly to the 3-stall garage. And then when you can tell back in October of 2022, there was the expansion. So it would make sense if the property was sold in 2023, that this was done before they purchased the property itself.
what month in 2023 was it sold?
Property sold in October 2023,
And then someone complained and
December of 2023. And this street view image is from October of 2022. The site plan was approved and built in 2021. When exactly, I don't know, but it was in 21 is when this house was built.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, doesn't the city follow up and inspect after a property's built?
They do, and there was no expansion at that point of this. So this happened after the review of the house, so likely just putting all these pieces together, sometime during 2022, there was the expansion, and you can kind of tell that gap right there, the expansion gap of the extra area, because if you can see the cursor, this and the additional sidewalk area would not be a problem. It's the additional area here, which, as known then from this conditional approval, said that that section does not meet code when working with part of our inspection staff, that needed to go away.
so how much could they go or none?
Right, so what is being noted and shown is, for the sake of a sidewalk, 5 feet could be for a sidewalk alongside the house. So you can keep this expansion joint, come back out and have a sidewalk that would come back 5 feet from the house. Any more than that, though, starts getting into our actual driveway space. So if it's used and intended as a walkway, you could have that sidewalk, but there's the additional 16 feet of width and 24 feet in depth that is added on to attach to a driveway and acts like a driveway within our code.
So it's everything from that crack to the north.
Yeah, essentially for all intents and purposes. So 24 feet, 16 feet, there could be a little jut around the building itself for 5 feet that can act as a sidewalk, but the rest of it cannot be according to the code.
Other questions for staff? All right, let's move on to our petitioner. Did I pronounce your last name correctly, Doty?
Yep, that's right.
Jeremy Doty, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So tell us why we might want to grant a variance.
Great. Well, thanks for hearing my variance request. So as you know, based on the earlier remarks, I'm seeking approval for a driveway that goes beyond what's allowed in the ordinance. So I thought it would be helpful just to give you a timeline from my perspective as the homeowner. So based on the seller's updates that I received with the paperwork purchasing the home, we obviously know that the previous owner initiated and completed the following project. And it wasn't just this project. As was noted, he also made some modifications to the deck as well that did not go through the formal building permit process. So I do know from the paperwork from purchasing the home that in 2021, the previous owner constructed a polymer deck, and then in 2022, he expanded the driveway to create like a little basketball play area for his son. And then we know that there's this anonymous complaint that was filed on December 13th, 2023. I will note that was all before I even moved into the house. So I didn't move into the house until December 24th of 2023. So I know that Eric Wazalewski, I don't know if that's how you say his last name, but that's the
Member of staff.
a member of
Elected
staff, yes. So he authored a letter on December 13th of 2023 indicating kind of the violations that these works weren't permitted. But there would have been no delivery because the previous owner never installed a mailbox, nor did he register the address with the US Postal Service. So that letter was never received by me. So then in November 2024, I finally did get a letter alerting me to the fact that these permits were not allowed. And I followed up immediately with the city of Green Bay. He kind of explained the circumstances surrounding what was going on here. So I immediately paid the $75 fee for, I don't know what that would have been, but there was an invoice for $75 perhaps for
That plan review.
yeah, something like that. And then I also completed and filed permits for both the deck and the driveway and paid an additional $100 permit fee. I've already had the deck modified at a cost of $200, and I also paid the $125 for this process today. So on top of these costs for works that I had nothing to do with, the previous owner also never installed the sidewalk that you see missing from this image here. So at the end of last year, I paid $10,000 for the installation of the sidewalk as well. So I think there are 4 points that I really want to underscore. I think first of all is this pre-existing nature of the expansion. So it was fully designed, constructed, and paid for by the previous owner in 2022, according to those seller disclosures that I had in my paperwork. So because I inherited this expansion upon purchasing the home, I didn't have anything to do with the works on myself. And the expansion is now kind of an established part of the property's design. So making that kind of the removal of that quite cost prohibitive to me, in addition to the costs that I've already paid to the city of Green Bay. Second, I feel that there is really no negative community impact with this driveway expansion. It does not obstruct public access to anything. I don't think it's harmful in terms of its visibility, and it's certainly not close to the property line. It also aligns just fine with the aesthetics of the neighborhood and doesn't really create a nuisance at all. And I feel that granting the variance would not harm any sort of public interest. Third, I need to underscore again kind of this unnecessary financial hardship that it would put me in. So as I kind of clarified already, I paid $500 in fees already to the city of Green Bay, in addition to $10,000 for the sidewalk, and then $10,000 for my property taxes this year. So I've only just moved to Green Bay about a year ago. So in total, that would be $20,500 in my first year in Green Bay, which is quite a bit. And I'm certainly no expert in kind of the area of removing driveway expansions, but based on my conversations with people who are, it would be between $4 and $5 per square foot. So removing all of that would cost an additional $1,500 to $2,000. So these cumulative costs, I think, disproportionately are burdensome to me, and somebody that had no role in any of the construction at all. And then fourth, I do want to point out that there are certain elements of the ordinance that the driveway does adhere to. It is constructed with a hard surface. It's not with gravel or dirt. There is adequate spacing between my property and the neighbors up north on Sussex Road. It has the tapered edge design that the ordinance calls for. I don't keep any commercial vehicles or trailers parked in that space. I'm a single person living in the home, so it really does maintain a clean and orderly appearance. And as a perk, I've planted native species in tasteful clay pots at the foot of the home. So that's all I've got.
Questions for the applicant?
So when you purchased the home, they disclosed these two additions that were made to the property after the initial construction.
They disclosed that they were there. They did not disclose that they did not apply for permits with the city of Green Bay.
Um, okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
When were you first made aware that the sidewalk was required to be put in? As was it just a lasting cost, or was it already like in the works for you to have it done?
I believe I received the letter from the city of Green Bay at the beginning of 2024. I don't have the exact date though in my notes.
So, but shortly after you obtained the ownership.
Yeah, shortly after.
So the sidewalk wasn't part of the original complaint though, from the outside. That was just something the city noted.
Not to my knowledge, although I'll add that I've not seen the formal complaint.
I can interject here. I did not believe that was part of the formal complaint. The complaint was based off the decking and the driveway expansion. As far as the sidewalks, this is on the road to school, and the rules do not force a homeowner before occupation to put in the sidewalk, but it has to happen. So I would interpret that the previous and original property owner should have put a sidewalk in, but they did not. And this is a gap just along Suffolk, and this is a walk pathway that is needed to continue a safe route to the school.
Other
So
questions?
they have to put in a sidewalk, but they don't have to do it when they build the house.
Yeah, you have to do it when you build a house, but you can get your occupancy. I don't particularly like that part of the code, but that's how it is. It's written. It's trying to get folks to still get in their house and not have to work, but that's you can get your occupancy without putting the sidewalk in, clearly.
So why, so, okay, so then the city never followed up to make sure that the sidewalk was put in?
I'm gonna know that it's a different part of the question that's coming into place here is
That's what I'm gonna try.
the question of the driveway itself.
Yeah, I wanna, I'm sure we're all sensitive to the homeowners, costs and other things here, but let's keep our conversation focused on the driveway and the request for a variance specifically around that driveway. I don't think the sidewalk is relevant relative to that. So other questions about the drive expansion and or why we might allow it? Anyone? Any other questions for the petitioner or for staff?
I've got a question for staff. Is there anything in codes or anything that of recourse that a new owner has with regard to a situation like this? Or are there any other past cases or records where decisions have been made where an applicant is in this situation?
Not to my knowledge in the past 3 years that's been the case. I'm not gonna say it's never happened in the history of this board, but it shouldn't. These things do happen to where people do and add on additions that were not permitted, that this comes into play where it's discovered, and when a staff member finds it, they have to follow through on what the code states. And this does not meet the qualifications for a grandfather, if you will, to where an action like this would just become a legal non-conforming permission action.
Sure.
Why not?
There's a length of time. So as a staff, the absolute latest we look at something is going back to the last major code rewrite of 2007. Now we recognize that that's a long time from now. There's generally a policy of if it's been more than 5 years or things that are not life and safety, that if it happens, we're not trying to go back and find every last thing that might have occurred and it becomes grandfathered. But, if people were to just do things like adding on without having permits and it violates the code just because it wasn't caught immediately, and it may have been caught within, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Staff comes back and we come to this process, or it's remedied by the property owner immediately.
But he didn't do it.
I understand.
And again, I think, if this is a situation where the current homeowner believes they've been injured in some way by the seller, well, that's business between them and not really part of our talk here at the table today. We really got to stay focused on just the issue at hand with regard to code and that action.
Yeah, I think the other aspect of it is that, and maybe we're getting a little bit into discussion here, but my concern is that, a developer would perhaps try to insulate a violation by building a spec home and selling, and that would cut off our ability to, or, any enforcement ability just by the mere sale. That's the problems with that.
Because it's shorter period of time, is that what you're?
No, just be, I don't know that enforcement or those issues can be absolved just by selling it. And certainly I feel for.
Oh, I see.
Helen here. It's not his fault, but
It's complete.
we're still kind of stuck with the letter here. And to Noel's point, I think it ultimately is, it's an issue between two private parties that is frustratingly outside of our control. Since I've opened my mouth first, I'll take my, first shot at the problems here. If I look at our elements here, I focus first on the hardship element. Certainly this violation isn't self-imposed, but a lot of the issues I'm hearing today are based on economic grounds, the cost to remedy, the cost to repair, and I'm sensitive to that. But we're left with a very minute or a solid set of criteria we have to work with it. And the issues here are primarily economic. I'm also struggling with the exceptional circumstances component. I don't know if there's anything particularly unique about this parcel that doesn't apply to other properties in the same area. So, and I could probably see raise other concerns I have with the other elements, but those are the two that are screaming at me right now. Not for lack of sympathy or care, it's just that, we're left with what we have here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't see detriment. So for number 4, say yes, and I can say yes to number 5, because it was not self-imposed. And if that's where he would have stopped his discussion and not brought up that it was expensive, then we wouldn't be talking about economic things. So it was not self-imposed.
Right, but that element is, we have to satisfy both prongs of it, is it has to be self-imposed and it can't be based solely on economic grounds.
It says nor. Is it based solely? Nor is based, so it's not based solely on, it was not self-imposed, right? I mean, you're the attorney, so you.
I'm here as a private citizen.
Of course
That's
you
what
are.
Logan's here for.
Yeah, just take that for each of you right now. If you're thinking about hardship, I think it's fine if we're not all gelled right now. We've got a lot of talking to do, I think.
Okay.
One of the circumstances I've got in looking at this is really for me, the key is item 2, on our list of exceptional circumstances. And we look at this and it's like exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual circumstances or conditions apply to the lot or intended use that do not generally apply to other properties or uses in the same district. The variance is not so general or recurrent in nature to suggest that the zoning ordinance needs to be changed. We always look at these as like physical circumstances, right? We're thinking about steep slopes, we're thinking about odd shaped lots, we're thinking about some of those other things, but I mean, if I could look at this and go, well, you know, we've got the exceptional circumstance of somebody sold this house right after they did this stuff without taking a permit on it and didn't disclose that to the buyer. Is that an exceptional circumstance in the context of our review of
I
these
wrote
things?
that down.
I'm not sure, but I mean, you know, I'll glance over this way, but you know, it's generally something I think when we're thinking more about physical things rather than the kind of the history of the situation.
Yeah, I'm looking at that same concern. My thoughts on that are, number one, I think to go that route opens us up to a slippery slope for developers trying to play fast and loose with the zoning ordinances. Build something, ignore their site plan, sell it quick, and
And then you're off the hook.
and then you're off the hook. And I think that the exceptional circumstances have to apply to the lot itself,
Mhm.
not the transactions that happen to get us here. It's a nice lot. It's a perfect rectangle on Sussex Road up in northeast Green Bay. There's nothing unusual about this. You know, we're here as a board to look at, you know, what is unusual about this lot? Does it have a goopy shape? Is there some water that's preventing you from doing
Something you should be doing, right?
what's typically done? When I look at the lot, there's nothing exceptional about the lot.
I mean, I can see there might be circumstances in which a non-physical exception might be granted. I don't think this is one of them, unfortunately, because I do have a great deal of sympathy. But it's yeah, this is not an exceptional circumstance. This happens all the time. You know, people don't disclose things when they sell houses, and that's unfortunate.
Can't close it because we're in an open meeting. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Were I in Mr. Doherty's position, I'd be having some very hard conversations with the person that sold the lot. I don't know if that's our.
Yeah, that's not really our place, but obviously it's something on our minds, right?
So the point made about a developer doing this went through a transaction already, so it wasn't developer. I mean, I think a developer, you could have more legal recourse. It went through a developer, then it was sold to another person, then that person sold to that person. So,
what,
I mean, I don't think, like you were saying, this could open like the floodgates on developers doing things. I'm not sure it could, because with developers,
But we don't know that it's been owned by two parties prior to that.
I think we also have to keep in mind that we've had more than one time we've had property owners who trusted their contractor that they didn't need a permit and put these in, and that's another unfortunate circumstance where we've made them tear the concrete out, even when they did everything right and trusted somebody they thought knew the system and didn't. And I don't see this being any different than that, unfortunately. It doesn't mean I don't, like I said, I have a great deal of sympathy, but we don't allow these. And we haven't, even in cases where there's been another person who has, for lack of a better word, failed to fully disclose or understand how it's done. We've had a couple of those already, where we've had to have people who really didn't do anything wrong pull the concrete out. So, I mean, slippery slope aside, I still don't think it passes.
I'm in that path as well. I mean, if this were like a request without any of the other extenuating circumstances, this is something that we would not be able to basically allow because it's too far outside the code and does not meet the criteria to make the variance. Again, I feel for that. I was in a similar situation with my own property at one point in time that I had to deal with something that the prior owner had put in there. So it sucks. I would look at see what other options we have as a recourse from that standpoint. But I have a hard time going forward on this one as well.
Hearing, you know, a few folks expressing that they're not seeing a path forward in terms of granting this, and Unless there's some new thinking around that somebody wants to bring forward, I think maybe we might be getting close to a motion here, so.
I'll make a motion to deny the variance.
Well, let's,
Let me finish the motion and we can continue further discussion after that, but I'll make a motion to deny the variance for failure on at a minimum, the exceptional circumstances for all.
so we've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Before we vote, I did see the applicant raise their hand. Let's just hear your,
Yeah, just in the letter that I received, I was under the impression that there was an opportunity for statements from supporters and opponents before the board review and decision.
sure. We could do that. You got it. It looks like you got a supporter there who wants to express a statement. Please join us at the table. Tell us your, can I have a motion to open the floor?
Most of them.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Right. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sam Dunlop, at 410 North Avenue.
Right. And Sam, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
100% yes.
Thank you. Let's hear it.
Cool. My name is Sam Dunlop. I'm here to just talk a little bit about Mr. Doty's situation, mostly as a previous alderman in the city of De Pere. There are a few areas where I think, not just related to the hardship that is presented by Jeremy's case we're talking about, which it sounds like y'all have addressed a little bit already, but relevant to the hardship that I think that comes to pass when you have a community like the city of Green Bay, who is so relatively small. I just moved back to Green Bay from the city of Portland, which is a pretty progressive place with a lot of restrictions and ordinances. And honestly, in situations like this, there are occasions where people who have been presented a pretty significant burden by the city don't have an opportunity to have their voice heard or have beyond just sympathy, but empathy. And I think that you have something like that here in Mr. Doty's case for a few reasons. Number one, obviously, as you addressed already, was the cost. But I think there are a few others that in talking to previous members of this board that I think are meritorious of consideration. One of them is the limited practical impact of the ordinance's impact actually on the property owner here himself. The actual extension of this driveway does not impede the traffic flow itself, create a safety hazard, create excessive impervious surfaces, or otherwise negatively impact drainage. What the area actually does accomplish, which was, I imagine, the rationale for the creation of the extension, is an area for other activity for the driveway itself and otherwise kind of unsightly corner lot. One of the other things that I think is worthy of consideration here too is the aesthetics surrounding what happens if this driveway is actually demolished. In addition to the hardship of the cost itself, the removal would create an unsightly scar on the landscape and require extensive landscaping to restore. As Mr. Doty discussed already, he's incurred significant expenses for the additional demands of the city that kind of came down on him like an avalanche and had nothing to do with his driveway, in addition to this having to do with his deck and his landscaping and things like that, which you said maybe can't be considered here as a part of this. The other one that I think is worthy of discussion is actually the minimal impact on neighbors themselves. Apparently this was lodged by an anonymous complaint. And if this variance was approved, it would have virtually no impact on neighbors. And is a relatively small parcel of a covered surface. And as he mentioned himself, he was not aware of the issue at the purchase of the property, insofar as the fact didn't have a permit for the undertaken work. So I think that there are a few things I wanted to really mention here that I think get clear the concept of hardship, which it sounds like is a precedent that y'all have considered a little bit in the past. He, I think, has demonstrated why the variance is, I think, worthy of consideration, not just because of finances, but because its impact on the neighbors in the neighborhood is relatively minimal. I think the one that I mentioned at the top of my remarks here was about the public interest. I think first and foremost is the idea that people have fairness and empathy in their government, and in situations like this where the focus is primarily on the letter of the rule of the law, doesn't mean that sometimes the city, especially this size, shouldn't consider also the human impact that these kind of decisions can happen, whether or not they actually have an impact on the other kinds of people that want to move to a community like this. And I've not heard a lot of that so far. And then lastly, I think that it's important to note here that this was not a self-created hardship. Mr. Doty inherited this situation in addition to the excessive bills that you've already mentioned.
Thank you.
Here's one.
Yeah, please, any questions for that testimony?
Right now. Well, I agree with everything you say. And perhaps you can tell from my demeanor that I'm quite sympathetic. That I will have a very difficult time voting to deny this, and I don't know how I'm gonna vote yet. However, I'm on this board. And by being on this board, I have to follow section 44, 141. And it tells me no variance shall be granted by the board unless it finds that the following facts and conditions exist and so indicates in the minutes of its proceedings. We must, each one of us, we have to come, be able to say yes to every one of these 5 conditions. Preservation of intent. A variance would not be inconsistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulations for the district in which it is requested. I can't find a yes for that one. I found a yes for a few of the other ones. I cannot come to a yes for that one as much as I want to, because human is who I am.
Sure.
And as the former alder in this area,
Yeah.
human is what I want to be. But I said, when I said I would be on this board, that I would follow the rules, I would follow the law. So I can see that it's an exceptional circumstance. That one, I don't have a problem. I can say yes to that one. Other people can't, but that's my personal. I can look myself in the mirror. Preservation of property rights. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the same substantial property rights which are possessed by other properties in the same district and vicinity. How can I say yes? I want to. If I could think of a clever way to do it, I would. And the other 2, yeah, absence of detriment, there is no detriment. I believe the hardship was not self-imposed. And I hate this part because I get it. I am so empathetic to what you were going through, and it just seems outrageous. And don't we have a heart as a city? And don't we have to follow the law? Oh, it's very, very, very difficult. This board is a difficult place to be. Don't think it's because we don't have a heart. If this gets turned. I mean, I agonize over these things when I really do. And you made great points. And this is the law we have to follow.
Can I just make one symbolic last push? We're living in an unusual time of government right now. And I think more than ever, for people to remain and have faith in the possibilities of government to be responsive to the people, I think it's important that you remember that you are constituted humans and not just reactions to checklists on a page. And you have the agency and the autonomy to act as humans, regardless of whatever directive or rubric that you've been handed.
And the difference between our board versus a fully judicial board is we're only quasi judicial,
Right.
where our board lacks those equitable powers that a judge might be able to impose. We don't have that. We're left, as Barb said, with these five issues. I'm frustrated. I'm unhappy with everything that brought you here today. Through no fault of your own. I agree with Barb on everything, but unfortunately, I don't see a way out of what we're left with here. And I'll unfortunately have to read in my motion.
And you can go to circuit court, isn't that correct? Isn't that the only
I have no
place they
idea.
can over? I was told, because as an alder, I was told the only thing that can overrule, all the alders can't, but circuit court, you know anything about that?
I don't know that.
That was the understanding we were given in our initial training, was that we can be circumvented by the circuit court.
That's the only way. That was my point. That's the only way. I'm not advising anybody to do that, but we can't, the city council can't do anything.
I would also like to note that, every person on this board is actually a private citizen. We don't get paid for this position. This is a voluntary position. We don't hold positions with the city and we don't receive any pay. This is just volunteer work for us. We are the public. We are restricted by the laws, but we do have a lot of sympathy. I'm angry on your behalf. And I'm angry on behalf of everybody we've had to turn down because a shyster contractor told them they didn't need a permit and they poured a second lane and then these people had to have it all torn out again. I have nothing but sympathy for you. And we do have a little bit of agency, but not enough. I mean, if we want to be consistent with what we do and rule fairly, the way we have been, there's not a lot of places we can go from there.
Right, I'm gonna pull all of this back to the motion on the floor. Let's close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Back to the original motion to deny the request. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, we haven't granted you your variance. Appeal 25-02, consideration with possible action on a request from John Burchett, applicant and property owner requesting approval of an encroachment with this within the side yard setback for a two-story building within an R1 low-density base zoned district at 1524 North Bay Highlands Drive. What's a base zone?
This is originally zoned, this is zoned as a planned unit development. The base zoning is R1 low density zone.
Okay. As I noted earlier, it's the goal of the Board of Appeals to provide and conduct a hearing that is fair and informed, appearance and substance to ensure that this hearing satisfies these goals. Each member will please confirm the following statements by saying, I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter.
I confirm.
I concur.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Confirm, I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I confirm.
I concur.
I confirm.
I confirm.
All right, and then before we hear from the applicant, would you please come and join us at the table? I would ask John, do you swear affirm the testimony you'd like to give will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So what you're looking at here is from 44-554, table 44-2, reviewing the side yard setbacks. The side yard setback within an R1 low density residential district for a primary building that exceeds 1.5 stories or more has a minimum side yard setback of 8 feet. If you're a one-story building, the number gets reduced down to 6 feet for a side yard setback. Or if this was a narrow lot, it gets reduced down to 6 feet. But in the case of this primary building, which is a 2-story building, what stays put here is the 8-foot side yard setback. So the applicant's looking to put an addition on the back of their home. And the addition would go within 2 feet of the side yard of the property. So they're looking to place a 16 by 16 foot 3-season room onto the back of the primary residence. This is a corner lot over in North Bay Highlands. In trying to establish what is a side and what is a rear, because this is at an angle that is not typical of a lot. We did note that because the driveway is facing back off towards North Bay Highlands, and there happens to be more of a gap going back to the east. But the side lot would be the south property line, the rear is the east, just to establish where we're looking at things when reviewing this case. So this is a drawing of what they're trying to add on to the garage. I'll go back. The garage is this feature right here, and they're looking to put in a 3-season room on the back. So this is the existing attached garage. And then you see 2 feet as far as the distance for this property, 12 foot, 3 inches from the existing property line for the existing primary building. And that setback that you have on this sideline would be about 8 feet or so. off that sideline of the property. This is a rendering of what they're trying to do. Trying to put on that 16 by 16 foot room on the back of the garage. This is a view of the house as it exists right now. I'm looking to place that addition back onto the garage itself. This is a view of the property approximately down the property line. It would be an addition that goes back up this way, the rear yard, sorry, to the side yard property. And rather than being 8 feet, they're looking to do 2 feet because we're looking to put a rectangular addition under the building, and it ends up being a triangle piece that would go over the line. I'll note this is part of an HOA up this way, that you happen to have some documents regarding that. Those are private agreements between HOAs. We're looking at what does it mean for the zoning code itself. And so, as noted by Noel before, this is a part of a planning development. It was one of the first planning developments that was established in the city back in the late 70s. There are no, if that PD happened to have specific setbacks, you couldn't even come to the board to go ask for relief. Here would come through to the plan commission for requests. But in that PUD, the bulk apartments were referred back to R1 low density residential, so that's why we're here. It's based off of the existing R1 code. And within the R1 code, if it's a 2-story or more building, 8 feet is the max for encroachment into the side yard for a building.
Questions for staff? Well, apparently your presentation was crystal clear. I completely understand it. We're now hear from the applicant. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Yes. Great, thank you. Tell us about your request here and how you might want to grant it.
John, could you go back to the last photograph that you had showing the side yard, please?
Do we have the video so that our folks online can see the?
Yes, that's what this is.
Back yet? It's that one. So I left Green Bay in 1994, and a dear friend of mine bought a condo in Bay Highlands. So I was always fascinated with the Bay Highlands area. The 3 homes that we owned in Grand Rapids were all in the historic district. And there was very thou shalt not, thou shalt do. And that was one thing that we really liked because it takes the emotion out of it and everybody's treated the same. So when we decided to move back to Green Bay, we bought this property January of 2023. And we knew at that time, there's no fences, so that fence was taken down. No fences, no dog houses, no clotheslines, no outbuildings. So it's all straight open. So shame on me, I'll be very honest. We bought the house in January. We had a lot of work done. We moved in the end of March. April, when the snow started melting, we saw where the previous owners had always cut the grass. There are 5 houses, so it's all wide open in our back. As you can see, there's no fences, there's nothing. So I started cutting the grass where the grass was cut by the previous owner and the owner before him and probably the owner before them. When we bought the property, we knew we wanted to do the 3-season addition on the back of the garage. And that's when we discovered that where the lot line was. So we've been cutting more grass than we should, I'll be very honest. Came to work with John. One of the things that you can see, not this, yeah, I think this is the one. In the bylaws, it talks about very vague language about setback requirements. Doesn't say what they are. I understand fully about the 8 feet. We do have, I have a letter, I just received it from the Bay Highlands Property Owners Association. It's signed by David Blackman. David is the president, and he's also on the architectural committee. And he states that he would approve the project if the city approves it. Pretty straightforward, clean and simple. As far as the structure, it's governed by the HP POA. It's got to be wood. It's got to be, you know, everything to match existing structure. We don't plan on skimping on anything like that. So one of the reasons why we want it is we have no privacy in our backyard. It's all wide open. And that's really what we're looking to do, is to create some type of privacy in the back of our property. The architectural committee came out with me. We looked for stakes, we looked for any type of indication where a lot line would be, and there's nothing. House was built, we believe, in 1986 or 87.
Oh, go ahead.
Is there any place, John, on the back of that house where a 16 by 16 foot structure would not come within the 8 feet?
Oh, yeah, presumably middle of the property, that could happen. Yeah, you do that.
So
You
there-
look at this back over this way.
I just wondered, or changing the shape, or, you know, we're only 2 feet away, right? We gotta come up with 6 feet.
6 feet away.
We're 6 feet away, we gotta come up with 2 feet.
So no, they're asking you within 2 feet of the side yard setback. The requirement is that you have to have an 8 foot side
Right,
yard
that's
setback.
what I
Their encroachment is 6 feet requested
Correct.
to be in the side yard
So that's what
setback.
I mean, we. It's 2 feet away now, right? No, it's not.
6 feet away,
They're going 6 feet too far in.
yeah. So right now,
I
as we can
get it.
see
I'm
from
just
this,
saying it so you guys understand, because I have a woman's brain, no, it has nothing to do with it. But I know exactly what's going on here.
okay,
I get it. So I was just thinking, can you cleverly, did you talk to him about any other ways that he could?
in the discussions as far as when we talked about this, and I'll let the applicant discuss further. They have different parts of the building that they didn't feel that placing this would work well in the flow of their house, so. I'll let him just, you can place an addition onto this building. That is 16 by 16 foot addition onto the
Into the
back side of this
backyard.
building,
In the
backyard.
In the backyard.
As long as we're not going into the 8 foot side yard
With the
setback,
side yard setback.
nor the 25 foot rear yard setback.
Okay.
But if you were to place that addition somewhere in this area, you would meet, you would get the requirement to work okay in an area, yes.
That's, I just wondered if there was any room, because it's such a oddly placed home on that piece of property. That's why you get so.
There
close.
is room to do that. I'll let the applicant speak
Okay.
some more as to what it means for their existing home and a placement of addition to the existing uses and layout.
We had an architect and our contractor look at all the different ways. If you put it in between where the sliders are, we've got that bump out 5 or 3-sided that would come out. We would basically lose any type of airflow on that side because it would have to be built right next to it.
Right, you got 2. He's only got 2, right, Scotty.
I know we don't know all the circumstances, but we do believe other properties were built or not in the 8 feet requirement of the property lines.
You're probably right.
That was in 1979.
And we're, and zoning changes.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Zoning changes and property, the covenants, I live in a place near you, that has covenants. Those are always superseded by the zoning of the city.
If it's worth anything, the neighbor next door, that would be 2 feet. Or 6 feet too close to their property. I believe, John, they did send you a letter
Now receive one. Oh, no.
I do have their name and phone number, but I do believe the vice president of the condo association sent you an email.
Also, no letters, not either physical nor email on this. Did not receive.
It was an email, I'm sorry, I'm with the condo association as well.
Okay.
I got a copy of
We
it.
can
I
open
gotta
the floor to
cover-
hear from other parties here, so. Motion to open.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, yes, please. And if I could have your name and address.
Amy Sorensen, 1521 North Bay Highlands Drive.
Please, Amy, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay.
So, I'm secretary of our condo, the Bay Islands Condo Association. And, our president is in Mexico. I know that, or vice president, and she did send an email and I was copied on it. John was copied on it. I have a copy of it
Okay.
where the condo association has been aware of their desire to add this addition and, totally approve. I mean, I don't think it's gonna not infringe on anyone's property. We're across the street. But we're well aware, we've lived in Bay Highlands, the area for 30 years. And what they call the outlots are like very large open areas. And people throughout the years have added, like you said, there's been a lot of zoning changes. And we've always relied on our property association and our county or property association and their board as far as setting the rules for the property association and the private homeowners. So the fact that Mr. Blackman and the other people that we know in the neighborhood, including John's neighbor right next door, and just so you know, they are oddly shaped lots. That's just the way the neighborhood was designed. So it would be difficult, I think, to first of all, it goes, his neighbor to the right, where you're saying it would infringe. That's their driveway and it's hard to tell from this photo right here, but.
The garage is to close.
The garage is, right,
The
right.
corner of
It's
the
garage to
building-
garage.
The
It's
corner
not-
of the building would be parallel with the corner of their garage.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it's not living space to living space. It is garage to garage. So if you kind of get that picture in your mind, it gives you a whole different kind of,
Thank you. Is there anybody else here that might be interested in speaking on your behalf or on the request? Okay, let's close the floor. I have a motion to close the floor.
Oh, sorry, move to close the floor.
Second.
Got a motion, a second to close the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried. So, questions for our petitioner?
Why does it need to be the 16 by 16? Is that like a prefab? Is that just a standard size for the Three Seasons room? Is there any particular reason why it has to be that size?
Cost efficiency. As far as any type of trusses, anything like that. We looked at various different sizes, and if you go smaller than 16 by 16, to be very honest, it's really not worth the money. To be blunt and honest. 16
I have a quote.
So it's a cost. Okay.
by 16 is the most cost efficient per square foot.
I have a question. When you bought the property, the homeowners association was in extent, right?
Yes, it was. Yep,
Okay. So you knew about no fences, no.
correct. And that was one of the reasons why we came out of a situation similar to that in Grand Rapids for 25 years. And we really like that because, like I said, it takes the emotion out of it. And everyone is treated equally and the same.
Right, but the point being is you knew there'd be no privacy.
Correct. But we planned on adding this when we bought the property. And with the snow, we did not know where the property line ended. And then, like I said, in spring, when the snow melted, we saw where the grass was always cut. And I made the assumption that was where the lot line was.
Yeah.
And you can see the cut line on the aerial photo even, you know, south of
Correct.
the actual lot line on there.
No, we did not have the property surveyed.
Other questions for our petitioner? I'm assuming that a large part too of your proposed location for this is just, that's the easiest place to add the addition as well.
We can come out, it's a traditional salt box. So between the garage and the house, there's a powder room and a laundry room, and there's a door at each side. So we would come out the door by the laundry room and we could go straight in to the 3-season room.
Other questions for our petitioner? All right, let's deliberate.
Not being consistent with spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation of the district. I just want to speak on just kind of starting on the first one. A variance would not be inconsistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulations for the district, which it is requested. I have a hard time getting to that one to say yes. Looking at the angles, I mean, if there was regrading there, I could see water issue being potentially to the neighbor, as well as like just basically the maintain of the property. It just looks like it would be more of a, I mean, it would affect the other owners in the future, even though it says that the current owner is okay with it, I guess. It doesn't look like it would maintain the property as it is right now. I don't really see it as an exceptional circumstance, as was noted before. I mean, you could put it in another place. The lot really isn't that odd, so it doesn't really look exceptionally different than any other lot that would be out there. I mean, the house was put on it differently than what maybe others would be, but the lot itself doesn't look odd. I could see your preservation of property rights. Yep, you have a right to do this, so I can get by with that one. Absent detriment, I could probably be okay in that case because it really doesn't, like you said, doesn't affect the neighborhood in general. The hardship, I would have a hard time getting as well because some of the questions we had are with related to cost and different aspects of like it is more cost effective to make it larger, but to fit within the code, it would, I mean, it might cost more, but the cost is definitely self-imposed with regard to the decision. So I'm having a hard time getting fully there to grant the variance.
I would echo Corey's thoughts on that last piece is, I don't disagree that this is the most aesthetically pleasing or perhaps the most convenient place on the building to put that addition. But ultimately it's kind of self-imposed to where there are ways to add an addition to the house. Perhaps get that privacy that's being sought without needing a variance.
Other thoughts? So I'm looking at this and thinking about intent, you know, variance wouldn't be inconsistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulations. I'm sure the R1 zoning underneath this all is totally okay in principle with additions being put on properties, so on existing homes. So I don't see any challenge there on number one. Exceptional circumstances, you know, if you're gonna have a square lot and put the house on it diagonally, I think that's a little weird, you know, in the grand scheme of things. And so I see that we've got a bit of an exceptional circumstance here in the character of this lot and the way we built it. In that we're just not gonna be able to do the same sorts of things that we might be able to do in other houses because it's been built at such a sharp angle to the orthogonal, parcel lines. Preservation of property rights, is it necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the same essential rights? I guess we could argue that point. I think again, thinking about intent, I think, we should be able to expect to put an addition on our homes if we can afford to do so and want to do it. I don't think that I see a huge detriment if there were fences or other things, maybe that would be an issue. But because it's this kind of open space between the properties, I don't necessarily see the detriment unless, Corey's comment about shedding water. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think it's looked pretty flat. And John, maybe you could go back to the photo of from the street that was looking at that side of the property. The hardship is somewhat self-imposed here. We're trying to add something to it, and what you're trying to add doesn't really work. But again, it's in part to deal with a hardship in terms of doing these things that other people might reasonably want to do with their property, like put an addition on. Because of the angle of that house, because of the exceptional circumstance, it's just difficult. All that being said, I don't know that going 2 feet to the property line is something when it should be 8. Or even if we think about this, John, the single story is only 6 feet, right?
Correct.
So looked at the addition here as like a single story addition as opposed to a 2-story house. Then go, well, that's a 6-foot setback. Then maybe we got to get another 4 feet off the line and say, instead of a 16-foot deep addition, what if you did a 12-foot deep addition that's 16 feet wide? You're still dealing with the same truss dimensions in terms of that, but you're not going as hard into that side yard as a 2-foot setback would be, and I think that 12 by 16 is not a tiny addition, and I might be able to get behind that as a way to kind of see our way to a plausible approval under the circumstances that I laid out, where I think we've got a case to meet these tests.
I would have to agree with you because I was drawing things here and the 16 by 16, I don't know how I can get behind that. I'd love to say yes all the time. It made some really good arguments. But if it was 12 by 16, we'd now be 4 feet back.
Yeah, and you'd have a 6-foot side yard on a single
single
story
story.
addition, which is not necessarily what applies as a code, but it would be consistent with a single family.
Because I know I can't say yes to 16 by 16. I just can't based on what I love compromise.
Any other thoughts? I just wanted to lay that out in terms of my take on the findings relative to the tests. And I think we can see that.
This is something we talked to are we allowed to talk to the owner about these kind of compromises?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I would just note that the applicant had put in the request is in front of the board, but
That's what you're saying.
I'm saying you have an application in front of you. Do you want to make a decision on it? Do you?
This
do you find-
particular application.
Yeah.
What if there was change proposed to the particular application?
It's a different
Can
application.
we go with hypotheticals here, right? I mean, I think we have an application that's pretty clear in front of us. They're asking for a 16-foot by 16-foot, 2 feet off the lot line. That's the request.
In the past, and perhaps we did it wrong, but in the past, we had talked to applicants about, do they have some ideas on how we come to compromise? We've done.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened when we asked staff, have you gone through all the
Oh, so we
options?
could
We
ask- have
asked
you gone
staff,
through?
usually they
Oh,
have,
okay. Have
usually
you,
it doesn't come to the point unless they've talked
Already.
about different considerations.
have you done that already?
So we discussed as far as where this could be placed in the rest of the property, that a 16 by 16 could work in the back of the property in more of a built
Different
lot,
place.
a different place. Or you could take the 16 by 16 and not go in a square. You cut it off and when it come at more about,
that too.
you could do that as far as keeping the corner of the proposed addition to where you didn't cut off this part here, to where you'd have it be 8 feet off the side here.
There's only.
But did you talk about the character of just a shorter extension and maybe only going 6 feet?
We didn't discuss as far as just
Okay.
what, but
So-
maintaining 8 feet is what you can do
Sure,
with this property.
yeah.
And you can add on, and there wouldn't be any questions from the board here.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's just, put it to the applicant, should they have any interest in considering kind of the notion that we're talking about here?
I have two comments. As far as the drainage, the architect is going to be raised as a deck. And there'll be gravel, so there would be no runoff whatsoever, so we've already looked at that. There is a very, very, very slight slope, it's like 18 inches. So there will be concrete footings or concrete piers. And then the deck would be on that, so underneath, if there would ever be water, it would flow off as it is flowing now. What's that? Could it be 18 by 12? Do you care the width? I'm hearing only the depth.
Well, I'm gonna care about this.
It's the 8 feet to the property line that has to be maintained.
That's what we're trying to get to, or as close to it as we could.
But John would be a better person to ask that question.
The addition can be made as far as, we're talking around 256 square feet. There are ways to go around this to where what is coming into play here is that from this property line, go 8 feet parallel to that property line. The building just can't touch in that space. But if you have an addition that happens to say be 10 by 26 somewhere else on this, and it didn't touch it. I don't know the exact number of what it would take to do that, but you can play with math to try to figure that out.
But
But
we were playing with the idea of 6 feet, which still would require a variance.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Here,
60 would still require variance.
so, I mean, as long as we're here, it still would require a variance.
Correct. Because the building itself is at that 2-story level.
Right.
Sure, so if you were interested to say relative to the case of the hardship, the grounds for granting a variance, to grant a variance that just said we could approve the addition provided it does not get any closer than 6 feet
Okay.
to the property
So
line.
we don't
You
have
could
to
see, you
discuss
could see if,
exactly what it would look
or, yeah, that's up to the property owner in the city in terms of what the actual permitted structure is gonna look like later on. But that's something that you could make as a motion, to see if there's other members of the board that go that way.
I think we'll try that.
I mean, I don't know how we get around, even with that restriction, how do we get around, he has options where he could do this without needing a variance at all, which kind of makes it very hard to say yes, doesn't it? Yes, it'll screw up the airflow, but if you want privacy, that's the price to be paid. I don't,
Yeah, in the past, we've made similar cases where like there is the possibility of putting this elsewhere on the house. Yes, it changes airflow and all the other stuff, but there's room on this property to do a 16 by 16, basically 3 seasons room
Yeah,
to be within legal code.
I agree with Corey and Steve, and I think, our driving language is the variance necessary? I don't know, as I sit here today, that I'm hearing that variance is necessary. Yes, in order to move the discussion along, I would move to deny the variance request based on the lack of exceptional circumstances. And for all the other reasons that previously discussed.
I'll second.
So we've got a motion and a second. Is there any evidence that we have not heard, sir, that would change the facts?
If you would go back to the actual photograph of the back of the house. We spent a lot of time with the architect. How would you put a roof on that?
Yeah, that's why I was talking about, that's the most logical place to put the addition
Correct.
because of the roof levels.
The
And
roof-
These folks understand that. That doesn't mean they agree with your perspective on that. So there's a motion and a second on the floor to deny this request. Is there any further discussion?
I'm not voting.
Yeah.
There's-
So I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay,
Nay. So motion carries. Sorry, sir, we denied your request.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna opine for a second, and the point that's been made about whether it's necessary. I don't see the language that says it's necessary. It says a variance can be granted if it finds the following facts and conditions exist. Not that it's necessary. Certain of the elements talk about necessary.
That's what I was looking at, the preservation of property rights. Does include the word necessary.
Right.
I was extrapolating that.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily that the entirety of the variance has to be, in our opinion, necessary. It's just that those conditions are met. And some of them, yes, do have some requirements that are created by the word necessary, but just be mindful, yes. All right, on to our third appeal. And our petitioners are like, gosh, they're over two tonight.
I can't think of a night we've denied 2 in a row.
What?
Can't think of a night where we've denied 2 in a row. Sorry, I'm pretty sick. I can't think of a night where we've denied 2 in a row before.
All right,
I
appeal
promise I am in a
25.
better mood than it sounds like tonight, but moving on.
Yeah, consideration with possible action on a request from Melissa Adams, applicant and property owner, requesting approval of an encroachment within the side yard setback for a 1.5-story building within an R1 low density base zoned district at 1195 Bond Street. Please join us at the table, and before we hear from you, we will hear from staff, and I also do the whole conflict thing. Because it's our goal to provide and conduct a hearing of spare and form appearance in substance, I need to hear from each of you that you can confirm the following for this appeal by stating I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Confirm. I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
All right, John, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please educate us about this request.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is 44-358 sub 3 permitted setbacks. All required setbacks shall remain open. So on this, so there are what can be yard controls of a property. There are certain permitted extra setbacks that can happen. Usually we're looking at the driveway, and that has its own particular subsection of the code. We're getting into a little bit different one here, because the request is to have an ingress egress window for access to a basement if you need an emergency exit. So within 44-358, there are some permitted setbacks. One of those, subsection 3, discusses the required setbacks for the following obstructions: chimneys, fire escapes, uncovered stairs, ramps, and necessary landings. Bay windows shall be no closer than half the applicable side yard setback. So we established, going back to what is a side yard setback that we just had just now. So this happens to be a 1.5-story Cape Cod. That means it's an 8-foot setback. If this was a 1-story home, it would go down to open narrow lots, it'd be a 6-foot setback. So within that, you can go halfway into that setback. In this case, that means obstructions can happen within 4 feet of the side yard setback. Okay. Their existing home, the primary structure, which should be at 8 feet off the side yard setback, is actually 5.25 feet off the side yard setback. Built 60, 70 years ago. They're looking to put in a typical 3 foot wide in depth egress to access for an emergency exit to allow for basement bedroom usage in their home. The applicant is seeking to have the setback of 2.25 feet from the side yard for ingress egress. What is permitted by right is 4 feet because of the construction of the house. Some additional background and depth in this situation. So this is the house here. This is the property line. They want to seek to put in ingress egress in this area. This is a view from the street of the neighboring property, and this is a view from back in 2022 from the street view, looking at the property itself. The applicants came into City Hall back in early January, seeking a permit to put in the ingress egress windows. They asked for 2 ingress egress windows, and you can see that based off the X right here. And it's hard to see in the scan photo, there's an X right there too. Human mistake, human error happened. The inspector was looking at this, didn't realize there was an X on this part of the property. Thought it was just 2 windows, but it would happen to be on this part of the property back at the west. And approved the plans. They're approved to do this. Having that, I'll show you the photos here. Having the construction happen to where they were digging out the hole to make this egress happen. There was a complaint that was put into City Hall in late January. Regarding that, thinking that this was too close to the property line or side yard setback. That is true within the guise of the code. It is. Now it was a mistake on the city's part to do this, to allow that right there. Because the ingress egress can happen on this part of the building because you're pretty far away from the side yard setback. You can do that. So with that in mind, they're seeking to have an ingress egress opening that goes 3 feet from an existing building, which is 5.25 feet approximately from the property line, leaving that said 2.25 feet.
And when is this supposed to be?
4 feet is the, because of it being a 1.5 story or more. If this was a narrow lot, which is not, the number is 60 feet, this is just over 60 feet. And if this was a, if this happened to be just a single story building, so for instance, the neighbor back over here to the west, they're just a single story, their side yard setback 6, or this type of functionality, they could be within 3 feet to have an opening over there. It would just be 9 inches. This is 1 foot 9 inches on this side that's being requested for an ingress egress window. Some additional photos that you're seeing here. There is a fence line that happens that is stopped between the 2 properties. Hard to see the construction happening right here, but you can tell that where the grass area is at. This is a view of the front yard itself, and then a view of the backyard as far as the utilities that are on the back wall and the entrance that occurs that way. And then this is what it looks like over on the western part of the property, which is no problem. That's where what's approved on that side, and that's where the initial review of this thought that it'd be 2 happening on that side, but it's not, it's 1. So this side is A-OK and fine. I just want to give some context. They're looking to have 2 ingress egress capabilities on the house, and the one on the west side works out just fine.
Can you estimate for me, just for because my brain is not perfect right now. So let's assume that the egress window is there. If the fence, let's say, was extended all the way up to the front of the garage, that's my main concern here, that the egress window is suddenly not an egress window because the fence is too close. I assume these setbacks were done for safety reasons with these egresses. I may be wrong about that, but I mean, how much room would there be between the end of the egress window and the fence? Were there a fence there? I mean, that's the property line, right?
At
It's 1.5.
2.25 feet is how much.
2.25 feet.
Yeah, correct. And you can put a fence down that pathway. You can do it. I'm going to note that when it comes to this part of the code itself, there are 14 different areas where we're talking about things like sidewalks and recreational equipment and putting in HVAC systems that encroach into different side or rear yards. The 15th exception is the zoning administrator has the ability to grant an exception. I didn't feel it was appropriate to grant the exception in this case, to just say, yep, when we already have subsection 3 that notes this is already here, so we wanted to bring it from the board, so. But there are 15 different exceptions where things can go into the side yard setback that do not talk about our typical driveway issues, but are talking more about utilities and
Right.
things of that sort.
And your concern was safety or?
My concern is that the reason why it is appropriate to bring this here is because the letter of the ordinance notes that it is 1/2 the ethical setback, and I cannot just, it's noted already in the code. So that had to be brought forth to be looked at by the board.
All right, okay, I think I misunderstood. All right, yes, thank you.
Just for clarity's sake, being it just going to be an egress window, that just means it's only for the escape of the home. It's not going to be like an entry and exit into the home for like a renter or something like that.
That is correct. This is a standard to be able to use the basement as a bedroom, having the applicable minimal space to have for a fire emergency exit.
And you said something about the lot not being considered narrow, or something
Yeah.
about 60 feet. How did that come into play?
I just want to give a heads up as far as there are 2 ways to be able to have to drop this setback standard from being to 6 feet, which would then reduce it to 3 feet because it's half the distance.
Yep.
The first way is if the building itself is a single story. The second way is if the lot is narrow, and the lot is just barely over 60 feet, but it's not narrow. It's over that number, so.
So the lot, the width is over 60 feet or about at 60 feet. Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's hear from our petitioner. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Oh, okay. Can you give me your name and address, please?
Cody Kanies, 1195 Bond Street.
Go ahead.
So we just got this house, we just got together about a year ago. She has 4 children, I have 3 of my own. We bought a 4-bedroom house, and we're looking to expand it to a 6-bedroom house so that the older children can have their privacy in their bedrooms. In the basement, when you go down the stairs, directly off the bottom of the stairs, there's 2 bedrooms, or not 2 bedrooms, but 2 rooms. One being the laundry room, one being a storage room. And then towards the front of the house, we have a huge finished area that we thought would be very smart before buying to turn it into 2 potential bedrooms. That's our plan completely. Kind of a first for me, so I'm just winging it here. We would like to go forth with that. We can make all the exceptions possible to make this feasible. I don't feel, I know some of the things were brought up that it would be safety concerns, for neighbors or surrounding people. As somebody stated, these windows won't be used as in or out. They're for, our children to escape in case of a fire. With the wells being exposed and it being close to the neighbor on the right of our house, I could see their children coming around that corner. So we were discussing putting a fence up. I don't know if we could, where the exit in and egress would be, if it would be to the east, or if we could potentially move that exit out of the well to the north or the south, which would gain a lot more room for exiting of the well. But I would accommodate and continue that fence all the way up to the front of my house and bring that gap up for protection. I was also talking about putting covers and safety preventatives over the top of the well. The windows have to be a certain size, and so do the wells due to natural lighting in the basement. And also natural lighting for the children. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this project. We still gotta go through walls and electrical movement.
I mean, I guess we're here today because we had our feet moving forward. There's a lot of go. We brought in excavating and did the digging, and we have contractors and billing for all the material, all the sizing and all that, everything. And that was after we were approved. We went ahead and initiated all this. So we came here today to find a way to come to an agreement for safety for everybody and to move forward with our plans on completing this home to accommodate for all of our children.
Sure. Great, thank you. John,
I need to be forthright here. When I was looking at this, when I initially looked at our drawings here, I was under the impression that this was greater than 60 feet. I wanted to check because just looking at this map,
It's close.
or so. So that would mean this is a narrow lot, which means the actual setback is 3 feet. So the request is for 0.9
inches.
9 inches of setback relief
Yeah.
on this parcel.
Yeah.
My apologies.
thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, I was honestly looking at that, John, because I'm like, that doesn't look much different than the other one that's marked at 56 down the way. So I'm like, thank you for double checking that.
Yeah, when I looked at the initial plans, I had seen something that showed over 60 and I didn't question it. I just went, okay, it's over 60 is what it is. But then when looking at this compared to the rest, you get the innate sense of when it becomes a bit narrow, and yeah, it's about.
Yeah.
Right, questions for our petitioners?
9 inches.
All right, we're gonna deliberate. Thank you. You know, I would say this is an easy one, but I don't.
I've been the grumpy guy. Let me take a shot at redemption here. I don't think that a variance would be inconsistent with the preservation, spirit, purpose, or intent of regulations. We're talking about 9 inches here. I would like to put some conditions that eventually to ensure that there's some safety given the narrowness between the lots, but I think that allowing this is certainly consistent with the regulations. Exceptional circumstances, I think the lot itself is pretty narrow. And quite frankly, I think, and maybe I'm skipping around here, but whether it's exceptional circumstances or the hardship prong here, the city approved the darn thing. All due respect to the inspector, I think these folks have a right to rely on. This is a little bit different than a ne'er-do-well contractor that came and applied by night and was trying to get a bid. This was approved and these folks relied on that to their own detriment. I think that the variance is necessary to preserve their property rights here. You folks have a lot of kids, God bless them. I have a hard time with 2. But be that as it may, I think it's that's perfectly appropriate and it's a reasonable use of their property and preserves their property rights. I don't think there's an absence that there's a detriment to adjacent property neighbors. We're talking about 9 inches here. That's less than the length of my shoe. So I would, for those reasons, I would move to approve this request. But
I'll wait for the condition.
But the condition being that there be some covering or screening to ensure that folks, whether they're mowing the lawn in between the house here, aren't falling down in the big deep pit. I don't know what the best screening mechanism is, but I think that there should be some safety measure to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Any further discussion?
I would just kind of add to I don't remember a couple months back, we talked about creative ways with regard to trying to get additional housing where we had the carriage house. I mean, this is a creative way of making sure there's occupancy in the dwelling safely. So I'm for that type of agreement, and I'm agreeing with this appeal.
Other discussion?
No, I agree.
I would just note too, under the exceptional circumstances finding that, the side yard that we're talking about is already narrower than the distance that's required.
Yeah.
So we're working with a narrower, side yard. I think that's part of the exceptional circumstances, of this property and its location as well. In addition to it being defined as a narrow lot, which already brings in some special play as well. So, I don't have any argument against that and would call the question. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the variance as requested with an additional condition that, some sort of covering be placed on it for the safety's sake, so that nobody tumbles into it. And I think that's probably standard gear for some of those things, right?
Yes, sir.
There's no further discussion. I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Opposed? Well, congratulations, you passed one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You were worried.
Yes. Lot to worry about.
All right.
It's been on hold long.
Thank you. Thanks, and thanks for following the.
Take care.
All right, we've got an update on appeal 24-43.
So this was requested to be held until this meeting for the appeal over on Cherry Street for some parking in the back of the alley. The applicant has withdrawn that request. That property line actually has changed here meantime, so we will not be seeing that specific case again, as that parcel is now gone, or has been modified. And then I do want to note that want to bid adieu to Corey and thank you for your service to the board. Corey's tenure as far as getting renewed is over as of this month, and he's chosen to not come back to the board. So we will miss you, Corey.
Thanks. So no, looking forward. I mean, my Mondays are going to be booked up for like the next couple of years. My son has baseball and I'm a coach. So my Mondays are usually going to be booked from consistent standpoint. So availability for me was going to be the issue, and other changes. Basically, my wife got a more important job, so I have got more responsibilities at home as well. So it unfortunately at this time it doesn't make sense, but I certainly am going to keep it in the back of my head to look at rejoining some boards in the future again when I have the time available. So good luck to you all. But this last few years has been enjoyable. Thank you.
Corey, thanks for your contributions.
Thank you.
You've been a really
thank you, Corey.
Welcome.
Thank you, Corey.
That's appreciate it. And to Corey and to everybody on the board, we need members. And to anybody who's listening on YouTube right now, we need members. So if you live in Green Bay and you think you'd be a good fit for the board, we welcome you to submit an application to the mayor's office to.
I was gonna say, because if Corey's term is up, mine is up pretty soon too.
Correct. Yep, we have 2 more that are coming up here. This
Barb's up as well, if I remember right, because she joined right before I did.
yeah.
I intend to rejoin if you'll have me, but
I do appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you.
There's one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won my election, should be done. First vice chair of the Young Party, so.
So Barb's gonna term off in April
I'm gonna turn off in April.
Yeah.
and Stephen in May, but Stephen, are you gonna re-up?
yeah, although honestly, I thought I was brought onto the board before Corey. I started in February, so I don't know why that date
I
is
think
there.
mine was an alternate, and I was because mine has been an alternate. I think I just picked up.
I was an alternate too. Yeah.
Oh.
And we all were,
Yeah.
right? The terms are varied in length. That's a. We still, yeah, there's
They're going to
yeah.
have everybody going off at the same time.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
I'm willing to come back though, so that's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Our next meeting is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And unless there's any other business to come before us, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say bye.
Okay.
Bye. See you all.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
So March 17th.